Sawney Bean is an individual that I discovered about 7 or 8 years ago. It came off of the back of my love of Sweeney Todd. I found out about Sawney Bean, fell in love with this concept, and then watched the film Sawney Flesh of Man, and I have to say, it is great. It is gruesome. It is brutal. It's not the most perfectly executed narrative. It leaves a lot of unanswered questions, but it's gory and I like it. It was released in 2012, directed and written by Rick Wood, and stars David Hayman as Sawney Bean. Sawney Bean, if you are unaware of who he is basically a legend. Potentially, he may have existed. It's not 100% clear, but it's believed that he was around in about the 15th century. Scottish, I believe East Lothian, and the point is, he and his family lived in a cave. They stole people, they kidnapped people, and they ate them. They were cannibals. Sawney Bean, of course, being the head of this and in charge of the clan, murdering and cannibalising allegedly, well, according to Wikipedia, over 1,000 people in 25 years. Is that true? Is it not? Who knows? But this film, of course, takes this. It takes some creative liberties. It's not going to be exactly. First of all, the fact that it's not set in the 15th century. So, straight away, it's not historically accurate, but because Sawney Bean is potentially a legend, we don't necessarily need that accuracy, but it is just based on Sawney, taking the name of Sawney Bean and turning it into a pretty interesting film. And it is about this cannibal and, well, his adventures as a cannibal. It's not the most rich in terms of narrative. The narrative is decent enough, but I feel like there are a lot of loose ends that were never tied up. A lot more that could have been done with the plot to make it a lot grittier and juicier and more succulent. But it's still fairly interesting because I'm fascinated by the character of Sawney Bean, so I wanted to see what this interpretation was like. And while this wouldn't be the 15th century Sawney Bean, I feel like he was a really interesting version of this character. I did like Hayman's performance. I mean, across the board, there was nothing wrong with the acting whatsoever. I enjoyed the performances. I thought it was a pretty interesting way to take this historic legend into, you know, a more modern environment, and I thought it was a pretty interesting story. As I said, not perfect, could have been a lot more in depth and detailed, but for an hour and a half of gore and cannibalism, it's pretty much what I was looking for, and I enjoyed it, and I'd watch it again. It's not going to be one that you could have got a lot of historical accuracy out of if you're brand new to Sawney Bean. I definitely think that is worth doing some reading around this legend, this individual, and of course making up your own idea about whether or not you think it's true. I don't know, is the short answer to that question. I've never quite made up my mind on this one, but maybe one day I will have a more concrete opinion on that. I'd certainly love to know what you think of it. But regardless of whether or not you think it's true, I definitely think Sawney is worth watching. It's gory, it's gritty, it's nasty in all of the fun ways, and I enjoyed that. Great performances, quite atmospheric, narrative lacking. It's not amazing, but it's still pretty decent and one that I'm happy to recommend.